Alright, so getting back onto the subject of the philosophy of pure potentialism. A key to realizing awareness as the primary foundation comes from the ability to be able to detach from the trappings of delusion. Now, this doesn't mean denial, abstinence, or austerity in the existential experience. It means not letting a desire for illusion cloud the mind, so as to not lose the clarity that reveals the existential experience for what it is, a dream of awareness. Knowing awareness is foundational reveals sensory experience as a mental phenomena, of which physicality is a facet. Realizing this means that one is beginning to understand a basic principle of pure potentialism. All sensory perception is illusory phenomena. If we come to know this truth, then we will be able to recognize awareness as the truth, and therefore will no longer need to assume a conditional truth as a supplement for the actual truth. For the truth is, we assume much of everything with little regard for the truth. Otherwise, we wouldn't liken existence to the byproducts of sense perceptions. If we understood the direct truth and stopped assuming conditional truths, we would understand that awareness is foundational and perceivables are illusion. But sage, the fact that perception is an illusion doesn't change my experience. If it's an illusion, then why do we still experience pain, suffering, and death? How can you still maintain that it's illusion when pain, suffering, and death are undeniable? Whoever suggested that because perception is illusion that it would change anything? This is part of the problem. Always looking for higher understanding to equate to some kind of idea of a change. What would change exactly? And why should it change? Do you think a mastery of mind will mean an omnipotent ego? No, it's not going to change the limitations of the ego. This isn't the point. And the very idea is contrary to the illusory existence of an ego. The ego is gonna die, no doubt about it. But death is illusory also. For what is constant can never die. It's a complete fantasy, a dream, imagination. So the fact that your physical form can become injured and undergo a physical death as a result of physical circumstances in no way makes the mental quality of existence any less imaginary. In fact, pain, death, and suffering are yet more examples of alluring traps devised to seduce consciousness into submission to illusion. Once consciousness is subservient to perception, clarity is lost, and the truth of awareness becomes buried. But sage, all this talk about the true identity being awareness is very self-distancing. If we are awareness, then why can't we use our thoughts to change reality? Well, there's no self to make distance in the first place. Sensory perceptions are a stream of experience, but they are not reality. Only that which is aware of experiential phenomena is reality. Therefore, even something like physical contact could be accurately described as an illusion, in that it is not actual, as the fabric of sensory information is without substantiality. So our fundamental essence is not anything physical. And I know that this fact is what makes the philosophy seem so self-distancing. But this is only because you feel a conditioned need to identify a self with something physical. You are not a physical construct. And there's no need to go the wrong way in the opposite direction either, by forming identifications with concepts like ghosts, spirits, or souls. This is often the natural secondary tendency for one who comes to understand that physicality is a mental state, to form an identification with an abstraction as a temporary respite from the unfamiliarity of non-attachment. So you can think of it as a sort of disembodied mind floating in a sea of possibilities, if that makes you feel any better. But it's not necessary, and is impeding your detachment, as you're going to have to eventually let that go too. Why even identify with a mind swimming in a void of ifs and buts? You don't need an identification, physical or abstract, as any one you choose will be false. It's okay to identify with nothing. But you are right in pointing out that reality cannot be changed by thinking. Just contemplating this possibility reveals the difficulty of overcoming attachment to abstractions. It's a very common faulty perception we find to be very prevalent in the New Age movement. The power of positive thinking, the secret, what a man thinks he becomes. Right? At best, this is a very sophomoric concept for the spiritually naive. At worst, it is a form of sophism, meant to manipulate people for power or profit. In other words, it's full of shit. In truth, thinking isn't how much of anything gets done spiritually, as bringing the mind over the matter is an endeavor of quieting the mind and unlearning. So don't look for your thoughts to change reality. Yet reality, that is awareness, is changeless, as it has no qualitative state. But you probably didn't mean that. When we usually speak about reality, we seem to be referring to perceptibles, which are not reality. Yet even perceptibles are not changed by thinking. The only way they might be changed is by realizing the truth of what you are, which is not the thoughts. But if you realize this, you would not be seeking to change illusion. Whatever for? But sage, if not by the thoughts, then how can one control illusion? You can only control your own mental state. Efforts put towards controlling aspects of the sensory experience represent a misapplied focus. And what do I mean by that? As far as the phenomena of control in reality is concerned, any level of control that one can achieve will be made possible through the discipline of one's mental state. But this is usually overlooked by most, as they skip the discipline of the mind part and solely focus their attention on trying to control aspects of sensory illusion. Much the same is true with lucid dreaming. You don't become lucid by interacting with dream details. You become lucid by realizing awareness, which thereby facilitates the revelation that you are only dreaming. The more lucid one becomes, the more control one can wield. Yet if one is really lucid, then they know that any exercise of control on sensory experience is only an interaction with illusion. The truth is not a sensory revelation. It's a revelation of direct awareness. The sense perception is part of the dream, of which comes a knowing that there really isn't any world existing anywhere, real or unreal. The only thing that remains constant from dream to dream is awareness.